Hello, you've reached episode 5 of the podcast series, The Question of God. Has our civilization outgrown God? My name is Sophie Minerva. I'm a professor of philosophy at NLA University College in Oslo. This podcast series is the result of a pedagogical experiment I conducted last year, and 12 episodes have been made. The recording you are listening to is from cafe conversations I had with 4 students about questions related to God during the winter and spring semesters. They represented different positions on the God question. Our starting point was the book Outgrowing God by the well-known atheist Richard Dawkins. The topic this time is the concept of belief and faith in relation to knowledge. What exactly is faith and belief? Is it the opposite of knowledge, or does it rather require knowledge? What is meant by the terms basic faith, blind faith, or enlightened faith? Let's join the conversation in the cafe. So, everyone, we'll pick up where we left off. It's a lot of people here today, so we just have to speak up. Last time, we had a dialogue about the concept of faith and how Dawkins uses this concept. I have asked Thomas to make a summary of what we talked about. Could you do this now, Thomas?
Yes, all right. Well, in his book, Dawkins makes a distinction between blind faith and evidence-based faith or beliefs. The latter, evidence-based beliefs, can be linked to reason. We are then dealing with facts, sound reasoning, and valid conclusions, right? Rejecting blind faith and adhering to evidence-based faith is therefore very sensible, says Dawkins. I completely agree. At the same time, we have talked about some examples where Dawkins does not always follow his own rules. Astrid also mentioned that Dawkins overlooks a third category of belief, namely belief in reason itself. That's actually a good point, because you can't argue for reason without using reason to argue for it. Neither can you use reason without already accepting it. Professor Sophie also talked about properly basic beliefs, which seem to me to include things we actually have to take for granted in order to function mentally, so to speak, or to do science for that matter. Belief, or faith in reason, is one of these basic beliefs. The same goes for trusting our physical senses, and also our trust in professional authority. Most of what we learn actually comes from trusting other people. I hadn't really thought about that before. So, the concept or idea of belief or faith is much bigger than I thought. That's it.
Thank you, Thomas. Any comments?
I agree with Thomas that blind faith is not a good idea. I guess we all agree with that. But when Dawkins puts religious belief in the same category as blind faith, it's quite offensive for me as a Christian. In my view, Dawkins uses manipulations. What I've learned is called the straw man tactic to outmaneuver his opponents. He creates an easy-to-defeat straw man and then attacks that fake target instead of the more robust, real position he is pretending to be criticizing.
So, Astrid, you simply mean that he attacks the caricature instead of the real thing.
Yes, exactly, Douglas. There are many reasonable arguments for believing in God's existence, and there can also be unreasonable arguments against believing.
I understand what you're saying, Astrid, but when it comes to believing in reason and logic, is it the same kind of belief as belief in God?
Well, you can believe that God exists in a properly basic way, in the same way as you can believe in the existence of an external world or other minds, like the professor said last time. Or you can even believe that God exists based on rational arguments for the existence of God. But religious belief, or faith in God, as for me as a Christian, is also about giving Him your personal trust and allegiance in a way that affects how you live your life.
Okay, Astrid, but I have a question. No offense, but how do you know that God isn't just an imaginary friend? Or maybe God exists but is not friendly at all? And you are, more like a lab rat in a laboratory. After all, there are many people who you can trust, but who don't deserve it at all. They completely fail when it comes down to it. Or they may just pull the wool over our eyes.
Excuse me, Thomas, I know what you mean, but do you really want to go down that mental road? Remember what you said about mental health earlier? I wonder if what you just said is the healthiest direction to take. Are you suggesting we should distrust everyone?
No. Good point, Hiromi.
Good reflections all. You've started to think about the basic beliefs that all human beings need to have in order to function or to do science or to make friends. Plato distinguished between friendships based on utility, pleasure, or character. Lasting, robust friendships are often friendships based on character. In this case, people have become friends by getting to know each other in a deep way over time, perhaps through shared experiences or suffering. Good friends have faith in each other. When we use the term faith in this way, we can define it as being willing to rely on something or someone behaving in a certain way. Think about all the things you have to have faith in if you are going to complete the education you want. You need faith as well as hope and love to get an education, right?
Yes. Okay. This is interesting. If we use belief in that way, there's a lot we have to believe in. I understand that. In addition to the properly basic mental belief that you mentioned, we also have to believe in our teachers, textbooks, sources, research results, examiners, and so on. How do we know that we're not being deceived? Or that our professors just pretend to know what they're talking about? Or that our examiners don't read exam papers properly, and so on?
But you don't think that, Thomas, do you?
No, I don't, Hiromi. But you can never know for sure, right?
Nothing is 100% certain. We know that there exist corrupt scientists who manipulate their data to get published. Even good scientists can make honest mistakes, such as misinterpreting their data. But we expect most scientists to be honest and accurate, so we trust them. What's the alternative?
I think we agreed, Douglas, and I realize we also have to believe things about the future to stay motivated, if nothing else. I mean, I need to believe that I will be able to complete this university program, and that I will be able to pay the tuition fees, and that it's possible to get a good and interesting job after this, and that it is possible to find true love.
True love, Hiromi? Yes, I agree.
Good. I think you're beginning to realize how nuanced and broad the concept of faith really is, and how it intervenes in everyone's life. That is wherever mental processes are involved. Where, in what areas do you think your beliefs have little to say?
Well, our beliefs don't determine reality. For example, gravity is going to do its thing, whether you believe in it or not. And digestion. It goes on no matter what I believe.
I agree, Douglas. I could truly believe and sing. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. And still, gravity would interfere and spoil my fun.
You're hilarious, Thomas.
I know. Thanks, Douglas. By the way, about digestion, I'm getting a bit hungry again.
Well, there's digestion and hunger, but there are also such things as psychosomatic disorders. And you have the placebo effect. The body is influenced by mental states, which in turn is influenced by beliefs. Isn't that right?
Yeah, fair enough. But that doesn't really change the physical laws behind it.
Okay, we're about to finish now. Thomas is hungry and we've been going on for a while. I'd like to finish with something that Astrid brought up, which is about personal trust. Think about this for a moment. What factors would you say give us reason to trust or distrust what Dawkins says in his book? Thomas.
I guess I trust him because he's such a famous scientist with a PhD who writes best-selling books and presents TV documentaries.
What about you, Douglas?
I don't trust Dawkins outside his professional expertise in biology, but I can still agree with some of his worldview conclusions.
And Hiromi.
I have come to trust Dawkins less the more of his book I read. He's not consistent in what he says, I think.
Thanks, and you, Astrid?
I'd heard a lot about Dawkins before and was skeptical to begin with. Now, I'm even more skeptical. He makes a lot of false and unsubstantiated claims. So I feel I can't believe anything he writes without checking his claims properly.
And Dawkins actively encourages you to do exactly that.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Next time, we'll look more at critical thinking, a topic that Dawkins is particularly interested in. I'd like you to look at the claims he makes on this specific subject and think critically about them before we meet again. Thank you all for a good meeting. I'll turn off the recorder. You have been listening to The Question of God. Has our civilization outgrown God? A 12-episode podcast series from Biocosmos Norway and Damaris Norway. You can find references and resources online. The script by Birger Elliott Benson and Peter S. Williams was adapted from parts of the book Outgrowing God, A Beginner's Guide to Richard Dawkins, and The God Debate by Peter S. Williams, who also composed the music. All voices, including mine, were performed using AI. The sound editor was Birger Elliott Benson.